Well, good afternoon, everybody, or good morning, depending on where you're joining us from. It's 3 p.m. here in the UK and it's 10 a.m. Eastern time. And you are all most welcome to join us today at 0 Days Live. Now, today is, of course, our Fun Friday edition. And as promised, that means we are taking on an 80s style theme. And as you can see here, I've dressed the part. And for those of you that joined us last Friday, you'll remember that we celebrated National Cheese Ball Day, which, as chance would have it, is apparently one of the top 13 snacks of the 1980s. So we are carrying on a tradition of a theme there. Very shortly, we're going to be joined by today's special guest, Clive, industry commentator and director of Pulse Conferences, and also previous chair of the White Hat Ball. But before we do, just a quick recap of yesterday's show, where we were lucky enough to be joined by John Noble, CBE, who is non-executive director at NHS Digital. And he gave us an insight into the phenomenal work that's going on behind the scenes to support the frontline NHS, from the 111 service to processing thousands of prescriptions digitally every day. He shared some eye-watering statistics with us, which really helped give us the kind of a sense of scale and also the importance of digitally securing the health service. For those of you that did miss it, it is well worth a look, so please do download the episode on demand, along, of course, with all the other episodes that we've done in the series so far. And on that point, whilst we are broadcasting live each and every day for the next at least 40 editions, we are here at your convenience on demand too. So please do visit nominetcyber.com/0dayslive, where you can find all of our previous episodes. So welcome back to our virtual studios today. I'm Stuart Reed and I'm with Nominet, focused on cyber solutions. Nominet, as you may well know, is primarily known for being responsible for managing the .uk domain, which we've been doing for over 23 years now, with something in the order of 15 million domains currently under management. And building on this strong heritage of understanding the importance of domain names and network connectivity, we also provide cybersecurity solutions to protect both government and enterprise networks worldwide from cyber attacks, including providing service to the UK's National Cybersecurity Centre. Ensuring people are able to be connected, included and secure is at the heart of what we do at Nominet, and that is perhaps more important now than ever. And with that in mind, we wanted to make sure that we were able to bring you an interactive show to perhaps bridge that gap left behind by the lack of physical meetings that are taking place right now. And so we created 0 Days Live for everyone with an interest in or from within cybersecurity. Now, I am joined both front of house and behind the scenes here with a highly capable team, making sure that everything runs smoothly and just the way it should. And speaking of someone who is here just the way he should be, Steve, welcome to our special Fun Friday 80s edition.
Hey Stuart, how you doing?
Wow, Steve. Now, I have to say, impressive effort. You look very comfortable, actually. It's almost like this is some of your go-to clothing collection.
Yeah, it is actually. I didn't have to buy anything especially for this. Just kind of what I do at the weekends. You can often see me on YouTube. I've got a channel. Sign up.
And very impressive it looks too. Now, if you don't mind, what I'm going to do is what is your kind of theme actually for the 80s?
My theme, it's kind of the rock star look, I think. You know,
yeah,
George Michael, In Excess, you know, that kind of thing.
I think you're doing well. So I tried to go for a bit of a Miami Vice feel, but I think that I might have missed the mark a little bit, and I think I'm a bit more Howard's Way on here. For those of you that have not seen Howard's Way or familiar with that hit 80s BBC show, please do Google it and let me know if you agree. What I'm going to do actually, Steve, if you don't mind, is take off these glasses, because these are actually legitimate bona fide 80s gear, but they are also prescription glasses and not my own. So thank you very much for those, Dad. Now, for those of you that have tuned in this week, you'll already know that as well as celebrating Fun Friday today, this week's burning question has been, what is your best purchase since working from home? Now, again, I've got a new one today, and I've actually have to make a confession. I've stolen this one from Kerry. I was so impressed earlier on with her purchase that I've gone ahead and done the same thing myself. So it's a selfie stick. So mine arrived this morning, actually, as it happened. So I can now take pictures from all the different angles in my virtual studio. So Steve, remind us, what's yours?
So I've got a new one today. I think it has to be this wireless headset, because not only does it mean I can do 80s karaoke at the weekends and look the part, but it also means during meetings I can stand up, walk around, maybe get a drink, and be free when I'm in meetings. Obviously, tea, nothing stronger than that.
Excellent, excellent, good. Good. I can't argue with that. Good purchase, and it suits you as well under all that head of hair that you seem to have now grown. So thank you very much, Steve. Now this show, as you'll all be familiar, it really just isn't the same without you tuning in, and we're delighted to be welcoming you all, regulars and new audience members, every single day as we build an accessible community to bring people together, hear from others in the industry, get a roundup of what's going on in the news, share some thoughts on best practice, and of course interject some good humour along the way. Now, with that in mind, we do cover a lot of important subjects, but we do make sure that we don't take ourselves too seriously either, and certainly not on a Fun Friday. As a quick reminder, for each of the 30-minute or so shows that we have broadcast, we are absolutely live each and every day. As such, there is bound to be some mild blips and bumps along the way, but when they do happen, we hope you all agree, it's just part of the fun of the show. And please do get involved and join the fun of the show. If during today's show or any of the others that you choose to join, you want to ask a question or give us a comment, please do so using the console on your screen, and Kerry will read them out during the webcasts. And speaking of Kerry, how are you today, Kerry?
I'm really good, thank you.
Wow, excellent. It's Kids of America style, it looks like to me.
Yeah, well, according to my LinkedIn today, a cross between Madonna and Alison Moyet.
Oh, interesting combination. Well, both of those certainly were well known in the 80s, so I think you've certainly got a tick in the box there. Very impressive look. I was expecting probably a bit more blue eyeshadow, but maybe later on.
Yeah, maybe.
So remind us, Kerry, what's your best purchase since you've been at home?
Well, today I was very lucky. It's not actually a purchase, but it's the best thing that I've had in the post, and it arrived this morning. So from Nominet, we have quite a few internal meetings next week. So we've been sent out a tube of PG tips, tea bags, and some biscuits to munch on while we're listening to the meeting. So definitely the best thing I've received in the post that I've not had to pay for during lockdown.
Well, what a great idea. So yeah, that looks a very nice tin as well, that you can keep and store all your other tea bags or biscuits in after the event. So kind of reusable and multifunctional. So excellent. So everyone tuning in, please also do let us know what your best purchase has been since you've been at home, and we'll read it out. Simply type it in the console that's on the right hand side of your screen. Now, as I mentioned a few moments ago, today's very special guest is Clive Room, who is industry commentator, also director at Pulse Conferences, and was until recently chair at the charitable White Hat Ball. So a very warm welcome from ZeroDaysLive to you, Clive. Thank you very much for joining us. How are you today?
I'm excellent, thank you.
Very nice.
You can take that. Thank you. Thank you. Hello, how are you, everybody?
Well, very good, and it's brilliant to see that you dressed for the occasion. I've gone for a slightly more kind of yacht club feel. It looks like you've gone for something slightly more upscale than that.
More 1880s than 1980s, really. My sixth form was a very old-fashioned one. We were all part of the Jacob Rees-Mogg crew, really, and had to dress up every day. Never got bullied once.
Well, I'm pleased to hear it, and neither should you. So I do notice as well, a very dapper look is kind of a bit of a trademark of yours, and I didn't know that ahead of time, actually. So I noticed you've got a bow tie on. I actually brought a bow tie on for the occasion as well. Now I know this will be sacrilege to you because it is pre-formed, but very much style over substance is my motto here. But hopefully what you will appreciate is the detail. So not only has it got the black core bow tie, but it's also got a bit of white detail behind the back of it as well. perfect for the White Hat Ball. And actually, on the subject of that, because I know it is a big charitable event that takes place in the cybersecurity industry, do you want to give us a little bit of a background of that?
Oh, happily, Stuart. The White Hat Ball is some 15 years old now. It takes place the last Friday of January, always at the Royal Lancaster Hotel, and it raises money for Childline. We began it with Esther herself years ago at a much smaller venue in number, 50 people. These days it's 700 people, and they're all from the infosecurity world, the cybersecurity world. So it's our industry's way of putting something back. It's a way of showing your clients what some of their invoice money goes on, good things like charity. So it raises money to help children online more than ever, because Childline began with children using a manual telephone, analog phone, quarter of the street, coin box. Nowadays, they're all contacting by an app, usually on a smartphone, and it can take maybe 45 minutes to solve a child's initial problems that way, as opposed to a quarter of an hour with an old phone. So it's a really challenging problem, particularly during lockdown. So we're all here to help the NSPCC and Childline, and we will be doing things during lockdown for the community to help us raise money.
Great stuff. Thanks for giving us an overview there, Clive. And as you will have heard, and I know that you're an avid viewer of our webcast that goes out daily as well, so you'll know the format already. But the question this week has been, what's your best purchase that's been made since you've been at home? So what's yours, Clive?
So many to choose from, so difficult. I got it down to two, and I guess I ought to let you decide. The first one isn't actually allowed to appear because he's not allowed inside the house. But my first best purchase was Felipe the gardener. My gardeners had to go into shielding. One went back to Estoril. Trying to find a Portuguese gardener during lockdown is very difficult. But as you know, they are the Waitrose of gardeners, the best in the business. And I've now got Felipe. We've got 2 acres here, so there's a lot of grass to cut. And he's out there now, busily working away. So he is my first best purchase. And my second best purchase is this wooden duck, which I got off eBay in the early hours of the morning when I may not have been thinking straight. And it is, in fact, a clothes brush inside a duck. I mean, who knew I needed this? But you can use it for crumbs on the table. You can use it for hair, anything, really. It's fantastic.
Wow. Well, there we go. Well, I'll have to take your word for your gardener. I'm sure you're keeping an appropriately safe social distance at all times, and a clothes brush that is part of a duck that probably tops everything that we've talked about this week. But I guess a dapper gent such as yourself really can't get enough clothes brushes. So
it may be the only one, Stuart. It may be the only one. I don't know why, but it could be.
So, as you'll also be familiar then, Clive, what we do on Fridays, we do a bit of a retrospective of the week. We've had a lot of really interesting subjects this week, and we've heard a lot of really interesting perspectives from our guests this week, from startups tackling security to the potential increase in the need for network detection and response, through to security for ensuring that the NHS digital can operate and make sure that everything is in place and running as it should be, particularly now of all times. And on that subject, clearly we touched on the subject of WannaCry, which was a big issue to have hit the NHS a couple of years ago. Yeah. Do you remember when WannaCry hit? Where were you and what was your role?
Yeah, I was just about, I think, landing in the country when the news hit. My role was then at Pulse conferences. We were just getting ready to do a conference in Barcelona. It was all going to be about the first anniversary of GDPR, because that had just been the year.
Well.
And everybody thought that all the news was going to be about a year in, how has GDPR changed? And then suddenly in comes this WannaCry story. And takes over and becomes the main topic of almost everything at the conference that we did that year. So, yeah, I remember having to suddenly pivot and change from what we thought to what we needed to talk about, just like we're having to do now with virtual world.
And also just like we do on this show as well. And as you can see, our very own resident rock star Steve has come up on
Is that
screen.
what it is? Oh, right.
Which can only mean one thing, as you'll know, Clive. He's raising his virtual hand because he's got something to ask. Go on, Steve.
I have. So, I mean, Clive, WannaCry was obviously hugely significant in terms of the first major use of ransomware. It's certainly one of the biggest still that we've seen. And we all know how disruptive it was. But do you think that was a bit of a milestone in cyber? And do you think it changed the industry in terms of how they perceive cybersecurity?
Oh, without doubt. And you could get 10 different answers to how. I think one of the biggest ways that it was a milestone, that perhaps was less obvious than what it was itself, is that it taught the corporate world, the enterprise certainly, that this aspect of breach was a matter of more when than if. So that now a huge amount of attention turned on to response. What on earth do we do when this happens? It looks like it's going to happen again. We're probably going to be involved the next time. So what do we do as an organization? And what they learned through WannaCry about who were the critical people in their organization in the event of a big breach was fascinating. It was not what they thought they knew. They discovered that it's actually not the CISO and the head of information security and the head of IT around the table, because those guys are busy affecting your immediate reaction. They're dealing with the problem. It's your head of legal. It's your CEO and your marketing people all getting around a table saying, right, how on earth do we treat our customers properly, tell them in good time, but tell them safely? How do we tell the marketplace? What do we do in our reaction as a company that's beyond the effect of the immediate breach? That's some clever techie guy's job. We've got to make sure that we don't get an even worse impact on our reputation by responding badly when it happens. So all that stuff about response became huge after WannaCry.
Mm-hmm. And thank you, Clive. And stay on the line, Steve, because I know this one was one that particularly resonated with you this week. One of the other news stories that caught our attention was, of course, the Action Fraud report warning about phishing, vishing, and smishing, or I think wishing, as Steve would rather call it, as methods of attack being used by cyber criminals, particularly in relation to the current COVID-19 crisis. So, Steve, give us a bit of a rundown of each one of those and what that actually means.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, phishing is the one that we're all most familiar with, I guess. You receive an email, tries to make you divulge some information, or perhaps click on a link to take you to a website to enter in your credentials, or perhaps to try and expose a vulnerability and compromise your machine by perhaps downloading an attachment or something like that. So that's the one we're kind of all familiar with. We see in all different shapes and forms, whether it be from travel bookings, safety advice, requests for donations, or resetting your password, or whatever it might be. The other forms that we've seen there are phishing. So this is more your classic phone call scam, probably the original form of phishing, if you like. So cold callers ringing you up, purporting to be from your bank, perhaps from the police, or quite often we've seen IT support as well. You know, we've noticed you've got something wrong with your device, therefore I'm calling in. All you need to do is let me access your device and I'll fix it all for you, or probably quite the opposite. And then the other one, I guess the newest one is smishing. And as I said, I'm sure we'll see this turn into other forms as people don't often use SMS anymore. But I mean, I said that the other day, and I guess the likes of banks and HMRC, they do still use text messaging. So it's not too uncommon to receive a text message from those kinds of organizations, because they won't be using WhatsApp or Messenger or anything like that. So smishing is when you get a text message come through. It looks like it's come from a trustworthy source, like the government or your doctor or your bank, and they're often trying to steal personal information, again by asking you to divulge some kind of personal information, or getting you to click on a link and go to a rogue website to enter in that information. So they're the three main types that we've seen.
And I guess while we're on the subject there, Steve, what are some of the new ways or tactics that are evolving in this kind of smishing or your new hashtag wishing to make it more successful?
Yeah, well, I think what we've seen is lots of people, the majority of people are now familiar with this kind of tactic, both in their personal lives and their work lives. So they are looking out for it more. So I think the general, let's just send out this mass email by the attackers trying to compromise people is starting to become less effective. So they've tried to look for other ways. And one of the things we often tell people is, if it looks like it's come from someone you don't know, don't click on it, don't react to it if you're not sure where it's come from. So one of the techniques they're using is to make it look like it is coming from a trusted source. This happens on both email, but also on SMS as well, where they'll spoof the number. So it looks like it's coming from your bank or from HMRC, and it will say at the top, this is HMRC as a contact, and try and get you to believe that it's actually from a trusted source rather than from a rogue attacker. So that's the new technique, because then it throws out the window, it's not someone you don't know, it's not someone you're not expecting to get it from. If I'm banking with Lloyds Bank, then I fully expect to get a text message from Lloyds Bank.
Yeah, indeed. And Clive, from your perspective and the clients that you're working with, do you think that the kind of unprecedented world that we're all currently living through together means that these kind of attacks are potentially far more successful than perhaps they were before?
Certainly means they have the potential to be. Something that none of us will be surprised to know is the massive increase in online banking. It's remarkable the proportion of our society that was still resisting for understandable reasons. I don't need to bank online, I'll go to my bank, I'm fine. Now everybody has to do online banking, or they can't do any kind of banking at all. 72% increase in the sale of fintech, the use of fintech apps, as what De Beer Group are reporting from Forbes. He says, as if he knew that without preparing the statistic. And that shows that there's an awful lot of people out there banking online for the first time who are quite unfamiliar with how it works. And that's a very vulnerable group. I guess you could avoid the smishing a bit more at the moment by just not banking online with your phone, because you can't actually effectively use it in a mobile way while you're in the house. So maybe avoid using your mobile for things that you could use your laptop for, as it may be a safer device. And certainly keep up with all those updates that however annoying they keep reminding you to do. Go with those updates, because there is a lot of security stuff in there as well as some marketing bling.
Yeah, and actually, while we're on that subject then, Clive, what other top tips might you have for people that are tuning in, or to pass on to relatives that perhaps are kind of new to this digital world, to kind of stay safe from phishing emails?
Yeah, we just got to try and remember, I think, our own human nature is usually to help, be polite, not to argue. And when somebody is calling us, ostensibly usually to help us, and we'll even seem a bit put off if we question who they are, our automatic reaction is to be polite and non-confrontational. We have to start getting a little bit tougher than that. The online equivalent of insisting on seeing someone's ID when they come to the front door. Well, if after you've seen it you're not sure, just close the door. Somebody genuine is more likely to come back than somebody fake when they've been rejected. Pop-ups. I have a pop-up blocker, and if you haven't, I'd recommend one, because I don't like to be reminded of the fact that I bought things like a Barry Manilow CD for a great aunt, and now they think I want all the other CDs. But seriously, a blocker is a good way of dealing with it. You'll still get some of them coming through the cracks. But a good little tip I got from a friend of mine who's of the more technical persuasion is that if you're invited to cancel a pop-up by a red dot button saying cancel, don't use it. Go to the little X in the top right corner, because there could be an executable in that cancel that's actually embedded into the pop-up malware. So always close things on the little X and just try and block pop-ups as much as possible.
Great. Well, thank you for those tips. I think they're all very valid as well, Clive. Now, I want to do a bit of a segue into a slightly adjacent subject, probably stretching it a bit, but I have it on good authority that you used to be a tour guide. Is that right?
Used to be. I'm not dead. No, yes, I'm still very much a blue badge guide. I'm still paid up member. I only do it for charities now because obviously my full-time job is working with lovely people like Nominate. But yes, I'm a guide for the United Kingdom, so I can officially take people into cathedrals or palaces or all those sort of formal places and tell them about its history.
Brilliant. So go on then. What's your favourite historical story?
Again, there are so many to choose from, and again, I did think about this because I was warned. I think possibly my favourite is an Elizabethan one, a Tudor one, about poor old Lady Raleigh, Sir Walter Raleigh's wife. Raleigh, we all know, sweet Sir Walter, was one of the paramours of Elizabeth I, who did actually put him in the Tower of London for getting married to Betty Throckmorton without her permission. She was very jealous. Well, he went into prison again at the Tower of London under her successor, James I, because he promised to find him gold, but all he found him was the source of the Orinoco River. And he got put into the tower. His head was chopped off, but his wife, devoted to him, had that embalmed head put into a velvet bag, which she carried around for the rest of her life for another 17 years. And she would go to every social occasion and bring sweet Sir Walter with her. Though by that stage, he was not that sweet. And people used to make an absolute beeline for any other part of the room as she arrived at court. The idea of sitting next to her and his putrid, rotting head, I just love the feeling of people going, oh my God, she's here. But anywhere else, I'm not sitting next to the head of Walter. But she, in a rather eccentric way, to her dying day, and was buried with his head as well in the bag inherited by the family, but the head was buried with her. So I think perhaps my favourite story for today is that devotion of from Tudor England.
So, as I said at the top of the show, we do cover lots of important subjects on this show. Who would have guessed that today on Fun Friday we would have had such an interesting insight into some of the historical goings-on of the United Kingdom? So I appreciate you giving us a bit of a glimpse into that, Clive. What I'd like to do is also move on to our usual Fun Friday questions as well. I always start with one that's kind of pre-prepared because it does take some preparation, and it's guess whose socks these are. So I'd like you, being in the chair today, to guess the selection of socks that we have on display. So we've got them up there on screen now.
Okay.
So
I have to guess whose socks are whose.
Exactly. So starting from left to right, whose is whose?
Well, on the left there, what are those little birdies that I don't know. I'm thinking since Steve is clearly in touch with his feminine side today, I think those could be a pair of socks that he's wearing if they don't even belong to him. So I'm going to guess for the first one, Blue, for the rather beautifully.
Well, hang on, Clive. Although you're always watching this show, the way that we do this one is we put the hand up for each of these. So your first one was Steve. Steve, was it you? Who was it?
It was me, and thank goodness we didn't get to which ones were actually Clive thought were my socks, because that end leg is quite hairy.
Yeah, this could be where this part of the show is never to be repeated again, I fear. So we'll go swiftly on to the second set. Who do you think those are, Clive?
Okay. I'm going for the second sock as yours, Stuart, because it's color coded, it's matching the branding, it's so marketing. I think that should definitely be you.
I'm very much about the brand, as you know, Clive. So yes, you're absolutely right. The second pair of mine are kind of a bit of a nod to the neon 80s in there as well, and a bit of a tropical theme with my Miami styling that I'm trying to create. So the other two are going to be really easy for you to guess, because of course one set's yours and the other has to be our other special front of house 80s person, Kerry. So which one do you think's a Kerry's?
So obviously Kerry's are blue ones on the left, I'm told. So it's Steve that has that gym sock and slightly misshapen foot there. I hope, is that club? Or what have you got, Steve? Yeah, I'm guessing that's you at the end, trying to look pretty plain and normal and no nonsense and straightforward.
There we go.
That's me.
Excellent. Well, that section couldn't have worked any better this week. So I appreciate you taking part in that, Clive. Thank you very much. So we're moving on to some of our other fun questions for you, since it is Fun Friday. So what's your favourite isolation activity right now?
My favourite isolation activity is a form of giving, Stuart. I'm a giver. I always have been all my life. And it's better to give than to receive. So I go out into the garden once a week, and I usually in white tie, and I sing for my neighbours. I live in an old manor house that belonged to my great something, and now, unfortunately, I share it with other people. It's 7 or 8 apartments, and they're all between 95 and 87. So they're all shielding, and I go into the garden and I sing old tunes that they like from operas and English arias.
Wow, that is not only is that a isolation activity for yourself, but it's for the benefit of others as well. So excellent stuff. Now, we've heard about a lot of your many jobs, Clive, but what was the first one that you had?
The first job I had was in 1970. I was 3 when I got the job, but I was 4 when I did it, for Sir Clive Owen, as he later became, the director. I was the first ever Heinz Baked Beans boy in 1970 on ITV, singing in a tiny pair of shorts, which of course I could still get on. I'm in a lot of pain, but I'm wearing them now. And a little blazer and a little school cap. And I stood on a completely blank white screen and uttered the words, "All the beans come from." That's what puzzles me. They don't come from the dairy farm. They don't come from the seed. I don't suppose they're picked from trees. I've never seen them grow. I don't know where Heinz beans come from, but I know where they go. I've had them for my tea. And that was my first job at the age of 4. Quite frankly, was a great start to a career that's been downhill ever since.
Wow, you know what? The one thing I love about this show is firstly that we go live every single day, and we also never know what we're going to hear next. And I think it is probably only fair after hearing that we go to Kerry and see what's coming from the audience.
Yeah, hi. So we have got a couple of questions in from the audience. So Raj is asking around within the Pulse community, what are the biggest concerns that people are raising to you at the moment in terms of your CISO network?
Oh, that's really quite interesting. CISOs are extremely rounded characters. I've met more CISOs than Kardashians have had embarrassing moments in their lives, and they are on the whole much more than just CISOs, very rounded people, very interesting people. But they're also incredibly passionate wherever they come from about what they do. I can't believe how the forums that I'm allowed on, for some reason, either because they don't see me as a significant threat or they just like me, they're about things like furloughing. If you're a large corporation and you furlough your staff at the moment and you don't furlough others, you've got some very disgruntled employees who think, well, why am I on the basic when he's still on his big salary? Now, those people have got to be kept on the network if you're to bounce back after furlough. But there are huge issues about having a load of people on your network who are very disgruntled employees who might intend to leave the moment after this is all over. So what do you do? What levels do you keep them on the network? How do you not aggravate these people further? It's very difficult to deliberately create a whole load of disgruntled employees. And what do you do about it? That's the sort of issue that wouldn't occur to everybody straight away. It's the sort of thing that CISOs have to try and anticipate before it happens and then mitigate. So, yeah, those are sort of it. That's one particular issue I think that's interesting about remote working that we might not have thought of ourselves.
And Sally was just asking around how you have had to change the way that you work due to COVID, so specifically for Pulse.
Well, I mean, by you plural is different to you, but you personally, I'm not actually wearing any socks at the moment because it's so sunny out there. But in a serious world, at Pulse, we had to do what a lot of people had to do and pivot. You had to be agile and quick. So we had to, first of all, make sure that we got all of our physical events moved to the end of the year, next year, without anybody disappointed. And then we had to start offering everybody something virtual. You've still got to feed your pipelines. You've still got to talk to people. You've still got to keep the business going. This is not a holding mechanism we're in. So we're doing fireside chats, think tanks. We're doing digital dinners where people get sent dinner, and then we all sit down together and rate our plates to keep it lighthearted. But then in a forum like this, which is proving very effective with Nominet, we can talk still quite securely and privately in those cases about the issues that matter, and people can generate leads for their businesses. People can get their problems solved as CISOs. So yeah, we're now virtual, and I think after this is all over, we will remain virtual as well as physical. This is the world with us. It's not taking over, but it's going to be so much more part of our everyday. And we welcome the challenge really at Pulse. Throughout all this sadness, some positive things come, and one of those may be a realization there are many different ways to do things than we've had in the past.
Brilliant. And then finally, Alan's just asked, what are the changes, what's the biggest changes you've seen in the last 15 years in the industry?
In the last 15 years, it's cutting it down a bit there. I think probably one of the biggest changes I've seen, well, let's say take two, public awareness. 15 years ago, we still called it information security. We didn't call it cyber yet. And when people used to say to you at dinner parties or things, what do you do for a living? You say, oh, I work in information security. They'd say, what's that? And once you'd explained what it was, they'd still really not wonder why we needed it. Now, if you go to a dinner party and say you work in cybersecurity, they know all about it. They'll tell you what you should be doing, what you're doing wrong, what they understand. So an awareness of the public is enormous. And from a corporate point of view, I think the biggest change is that 15 years ago, nobody shared anything with anybody else. Everything was cloak and dagger and secretive. What solution am I using for a firewall? Am I AV? Which back in the day is all it was. Don't tell anyone, it's giving the game away. We have learned so much. I'm on the advisory board of Club CISO for the last, I don't know, 8-9 years. Club CISO is an industry body for CISOs to share. 24 hours a day they're sharing on that, talking to each other about, I've got this problem, how have you all solved it? I'm looking for this solution, has anybody else used it? The way that they've learned that by sharing and trusting each other, which is after all what cyber criminals are extremely good at. They've been sharing from day one. We're now learning perhaps from them in that the big change, I'd say, in the industry way is that people share and trust each other in communities where they've got relationships so that we're stronger together than being apart.
Excellent.
Brilliant, thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Great questions, actually, from the audience today. So thank you very much for the participation. Thank you for everyone that's asked something. Thank you, Clive, also for joining us today and for your time. I think it's safe to say that we've all learned something today, and perhaps not necessarily what we expected to at the top of the hour here. So it takes us nicely into the weekend, and really appreciate you joining us. So thank you very much, Clive Room.
My pleasure. I wish you all the best and everybody listening. And all those that will watch the recording afterwards, I'm sure on YouTube, I wish everybody the best, to keep safe, keep positive. As the Queen says, we will meet again.
Excellent. Well, thank you. Very wise words there from Clive. Now, before we do wrap things up here today, let's do a very brief wash up of today's news, Kerry.
On the BBC, there's news that iPhone is at risk of hacking through their mail app. To exploit the flaw, hackers send a seamlessly blank email to the account, and then once it's opened, it will force the app to crash, making the user reboot the system, which then would give hackers access to the information. The fix is due out in the next update. In Computer Weekly, there's discussion on how you fix cybersecurity complacency using a carrot and stick approach. And then finally, in Info Security magazine, and a bit more upbeat, hackers have taken part in a virtual hackathon and have donated $5,000 per bug bounty to the WHO COVID-19 Solidarity Fund. And during the course of the event, they found more than 250 vulnerabilities that they discovered.
Wow. Wow, a virtual hackathon. Who would have thought it? What a great idea. The event, I think, was supposed to have happened in Singapore in person. It's brilliant to see that, along with kind of some of the techniques that Clive touched on earlier, that everyone's really adapting and transitioning to be more digitally focused as well. So really interesting stuff. I saw that Steve popped on there, so that can only mean one thing. He's got something insightful to share before the weekend.
Yeah, I just want to say very quickly that iPhone thing is interesting, isn't it? Because for years, owners of Macs have been saying, I can't get viruses, I can't get malware because I've got a Mac, and they were quickly proved wrong over the past few years. And I think the same full sense of security has come with iOS devices like iPhones as well. So it just goes to show, no matter what you think, your device could always be vulnerable. So you always got to watch out and be careful what you're doing.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. Nobody is immune in this digital world, so being vigilant and taking sensible and proactive steps is certainly a good thing. So thanks for your comments there as well, Steve. So that really is it for today. Very special thanks to today's guest, Clive Room, to all of our other fantastic guests that we've had on this week. We've had Alan Jenkins, Fran Howarth, James Stickland, John Noble CB, to everyone, of course, here front of house and behind the scenes at 0 Days Live, and of course to all of you for tuning in. We've got more great guests, you'll be pleased to know, coming up next week, so please do join us. We've got representatives from Clarabridge, HSBC, Razorthorn, Aldermole Bank and Computer Weekly, so please do join us then. In the meantime, have a great weekend and goodbye.